list of materials used in this project, check out the description below and click on Show More. There's some other good stuff down there, so you'll want to make sure you check it out. To start off this project, the first thing I'm going to do is make a few of my covered wood beads. So I'm going to use some Miyuki seed beads. I have a couple colors of Miyuki seed beads as well as some Delicas and a 15-0 seed bead here that I'm going to use to create my cover on my 10mm wood round. Now I have this little bead on it board sorter here, this easy bead sorter, and I'm using it for just kind of storage and organization of my work surface here. So I've got some finished beads in here as well as my seed beads and my base beads. So it's just kind of handy to keep everything in its place and from rolling around too much on you as you work. I'm going to start out here with a stop bead, and I'm going to pick up 9 additional beads, so I've got a total of 10 beads on my thread. I'm going to take these beads and just loop them around so we go through that stop bead again and through all 10 beads. And pull that circle tight and continue until you pass through your stop bead again, and that way you'll know that you've gone around all the beads and you've pulled it tight. It gives you a little bit more leverage there so you can pull and make sure that that's nice and tight so you don't have any slack or any extra thread in between those beads. We're going to start here with this simple little peyote stitch, and in between each of my beads as I do the peyote, I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15-0 seed beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 of my 15-0s, and again, just in a regular peyote stitch, coming out of 1 seed bead, which this is my stop bead here, I'm going to skip over 1 bead and I'm going to go through the next bead. So as I pull my thread here, I have 2 of my 15-0s sitting right next to that 1 11-0 seed bead that I skipped over. And I'm going to continue to do this just around the entire circle here that I've made. Oops, and I got my beads jumping all over. But they're nice and contained because they're jumping into another little container over here in my sorter, so I can just scoop those guys up later. And 2 more of my 15-0s. So if you're familiar with peyote, this is going to be really easy. This whole process here of covering the bead is going to basically be done in peyote, just knowing how many of the beads to pick up at what row of peyote, because as we make this into more of a ball or curved shape that's going to fit over a curved surface, we need to expand it and then make it smaller to go back down around on the other side there. So we need this to get bigger towards the middle and then smaller on the other side where the other hole is. So I've gone all around here, picking up my 2 15-0s, and I'm going to go through the last 2 15-0s there. I'm going to go back through those 15-0s, just continuing around and through an 11-0 and through 2 more 15-0s. So all I'm doing is I'm not picking up any more beads. I'm just continuing through the project, reinforcing and just getting a better grip on it so when I give it a pull, it's nice and tight. So now coming out of 2 of those 15-0s, I'm going to now begin doing my peyote stitch with the 11-0 beads. So I've got my 11-0 Delicas and seed beads here. And you can kind of pick them up in any order that you want. You can see here I'm going to do stripes. So I've started with this mint color, and then I went to the Delica, and then I went to this light icy color, and then I just repeated those stripes. So I just repeated that pattern. So after this icy color here, I think I'm going to go ahead and do my Delicas. So on this pass around in peyote, I'm going to pick up 2 beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 of my Delicas and add 2 Delicas in between each pair of my 15-0s. The 15-0s are always going to be added in pairs, so I'm never going to increase the number of 15-0s that I use, just the number of the 11-0 beads. So just going around here, going around my circle here, working outward, and adding 2 of my Delicas between each of my 15-0 seed beads. At this point it's going to look really flat, but once we start doing the next row, you'll see that it will actually start to curve in on itself. Okay, so now I'm going through my last set of 15-0 seed beads. I'm going to pass through the first set of 11-0s, my Delicas that I picked up. So that's essentially my step up there. And I'm going to add another row of 15-0s. So remember, every time I pick up the 15-0s, I'm just going to pick up 2. So I've got 2 15-0s, and I'm going to pass through my Delicas. And again, in the same fashion, I'm going to go around my whole circle here, picking up 2 15-0s in between all of the Delicas, in between each of the pairs of Delicas. You should now have a little disc that looks like this, and your thread will be coming out of 2 of the pairs of 15-0s. So now to add the next layer of peyote, we're actually going to do the peyote with 3 beads this time, going between each one of our sets of 2 15-0s. And I'm going to use my mint color here. So pick up 3 of my mint. And one's a little funky shape, so I'm going to take that one off, get another one. So 3 of my mint beads. And again, just with peyote, I'm going to go through the next set of 15-0s, allowing those 3 beads to rest and sit in line here in between the 15-0s. So I'm going to do this the whole way around until I get to the beginning here, and then I will add in between my mint colored seed beads here, I'm going to do another row of the 15-0 seed beads. So I'm going to go through all of the 15-0 seed beads, picking up 3 of my mint colored seed beads. And then after that, your second row that you're going to do in this step is then to just add the 2 15-0s in between all of the sets of 3 of the mint. So go ahead and do that, and then we will move on to the next step. So now you should have something that looks like it's turning into a little cap or a little bowl, so you can see the sides are starting to come up. And if we put one of our little beads in it, you can see that it's starting to follow the shape of the round bead here. So this is exactly what we want. We're almost halfway done, and so we have one more row here where we're going to be adding beads, and then we're going to work on making it smaller to cover up the other end of the bead, working back towards the hole on the other side. So now after adding a row of seed beads and adding a row of my 15-0s, I should be coming out of my 2 15-0s, and I'm going to add another row of seed beads where I make the row a little bit bigger by adding more. So I've added 3 seed beads in my second to last row. So now I'm going to add 4 seed beads, and it's going to be in this light blue icy color. So I'm going to pick up 4 of my seed beads, and again just go through the gold seed beads, and then pick up another 4 here, again following the same steps, just increasing the amount of seed beads to 4 rather than 3 in the last step. And again, just like I did before, I'm going to continue all the way around, adding those 4 seed beads in between all the 15 O's, and then in between the 4 seed beads, I'll add those 2 15 O's to finish off this step. And then we'll start looking at tapering this down so it really fits the form of the round bead. So now you should have something that looks like this, where it's getting wider still. And if we put our little round wood ball in there, you can see it covers about half of the ball, and that's just what we want. So this last row that we did where we added 4 seed beads, that's going to be the center. So now we're going to start with tapering it down to really kind of round it out and make it fit that round shape. So the next row we're going to do here is just going to be adding 3 seed beads. And again, we should be coming out of 2 of our 15 O's. And I'm going to follow the same pattern here. So I'm going to use my Delica. So I'm going to pick up 3 of my Delicas, go through the 15 O's, and continue this around until I've gone all the way around my bead. Now at this point, because we're starting to taper it in, it's going to be nice to hold that bead in the form and hold it in place as much as you can, and that will prevent you from making your form without the form, making your bead without the form in it, so that you don't get to a point where it's too tight and you can't then add the form. So at this point, I like to work with my form or my 10 millimeter wood bead in the seed beaded piece here, and it just helps me make sure everything is nice and tight and I've got it exactly the right size and shape that I need. So continue around here, adding 3 of your Delicas in between all of the 15 O's, and then, like we've been doing, we'll add those 15 O's again between all of the Delicas. So I finished adding my set of 3 Delicas, and then I went around and added those 2 seed beads in between the 2 15 O's. So again here, coming out of the 2 15 O's, because I did 3 here in my last row, I'm going to do 2 here, and I'm continue to taper down. So I'm going to work with my mint color here and pick up 2 and through the 15 O's, and 2 and through the 15 O's. Continue all the way around until you've added all of your sets of 2, and then we'll go through all of those sets of 2 Miyuki seed beads in the 11 O and add the two 15 O's here in between. So that will be, and we're getting close to the end here, and this will be getting us very close to that hole and very close to seeing the sky all come together. At this point here, you'll see that it's pretty easy to keep track of where the hole in your bead is, and so it's pretty easy to make sure that you've got your beaded your beaded outside section cover aligned so that you're not going to lose that hole. So you can still use the bead as a bead. But at this point, if you need to, you can use just a piece of wire. I just have a piece of brass wire here that you can put the bead on the wire so that you don't lose track of that hole as you work, and that may help you. I'm not going to do that in the video here just because it may be distracting in the video, but if you do need something like that, just cut yourself a piece of wire, use a needle, put a piece of yarn or string through there, and just keep track of that hole as you work, because the next couple steps here, we're going to really close in on that hole and it may be more difficult to see. Coming out of our 2 15 O seed beads, we're going to now just pick up 1 seed bead and pass through the next set of 15s. And we're going to repeat this all the way around. So you can see each layer that we're doing, or each row of seed beads, is really just exactly the same. We're just increasing or decreasing the number of beads that we're adding, and then picking up those two 15-0s in between to create this stripe effect on the side. So here I am adding my last single seed bead, going through those two 15-0s. And I'm going to go through that first single seed bead that I picked up. And now I'm going to pass through all these single seed beads again, picking up one seed bead as I go. So coming out of one single, I'm going to pick up another single and pass through the next bead. Pick up another single seed bead and pass through the next bead here. And this will give me that original set of 10 matching, just like I have on the back here, or on the other side. And you can see I'm starting to lose that hole a little bit, starting to get covered. So if I want to, I can put this on my stick of wire and just make sure that I don't lose sight of that hole. And here right now I have my last single seed bead that I'm adding. And now all I need to do to finish this is go back around through these 10 seed beads at the top here. I'm just going to go back through there to reinforce that and just make sure that they're tight together and you don't have any slack in my thread. And then I can tie off my thread wherever I want to. I'll probably take my thread down through my project and maybe try to tie it off at the bottom here where my tail thread is. So just going around here and reinforcing this. And I'll probably just follow my seed beads here. Just follow your thread path in your beads down through the project. And you can kind of go back and forth here. I'm just getting my tail threads close to each other, coming out next to each other so that I can then tie them off together. Okay, so now that I've got them next to each other, yep, and my hole, I can still see my hole. That's very important when you do this. We'll do just do a little tie here, a right over left and a left over right. And I will carefully burn down this thread end and be careful to burn only what I want to discard, not anything that I want to keep. So to store these beads until you're ready to use them, I would put them on a piece of wire, or if you want to put them on a piece of string or thread, just keep them stranded somehow so that the outside doesn't roll around and you don't lose track of the hole in your bead. So I now have 4 beaded beads here, and that's about what I'm going to need for the bracelet that I want to make with them. I also have left some of my beads, some of my wood beads uncovered because I love the look of the natural wood. And the natural wood, especially with these blues and greens, it's very ocean and very fresh, so I'm just going to leave some of them blank. I also have here a beaded toggle. And in this video, I'm not going to go over how to make the beaded toggle because we have another couple videos showing that. One is the Gemini bracelet, And we also have a standalone video on how to make the toggle. So if you check out those videos, you'll learn how to make the circle for the toggle and how to make the bar. Both very easy and just using peyote stitch. I left quite a bit of tail thread on each end or each side of my toggle because the thread coming off of my toggle is actually what I'm going to use to string this bracelet. So I'm going to start here with the loop side. So I'm going to take this toggle or the bar side and just put that to the side for right now. And I've threaded the end of the tail thread or the extra thread. Sorry, not the tail thread. The tail thread I'm not going to use. But all that extra thread that I had when I finished making the loop here for my toggle, I just threaded that. And it's quite a long piece here. So if you're going to make a bracelet like this, you want to make sure that you cut yourself a little bit longer than you really need for the toggle itself so you can use this extra thread for stringing. So I've got that threaded, and I'm going to now begin just creating a bracelet using my dragon thread here, just like I would a beading wire or any other stringing wire. I have some seed beads here because I want to use a couple seed beads throughout, and I also have these nice little flat rondelles. They're kind of irregular in their shape and size, which I thought was perfect to use with these irregular, sort of very natural looking wood beads. So coming right off the toggle, I'm going to start with just a couple seed beads. And you can use whatever color you want, of course. I'm using this mint color just because I want it to stand out and be a little different from the toggle. And then I'm going to just decide what kind of pattern I want. I love these flat, these very flat white rondelles. They remind me of shells. So I'm going to put a couple together, and then I'm going to add one of my round beads, one of my uncovered round beads, another couple of these really fun organic rounds. I'm going to pick up a seed bead or two here, and then add one of my beaded beads. And I have them here on a string here so you don't lose track of that hole. So you can see here I'm kind of spacing it out a little bit, just giving it a little extra wiggle room and making it a little bit more fluid by adding a couple seed beads in between there. Now if your seed beads go through the hole in your wood, that's okay. You'll just need to fill up the center of the bead with your seed beads until they come out the other side. And I'm just going to repeat this pattern until I get to the length that I want. And then I will add the other side of my toggle. So I'm just going to continue here, and then I will show you what I have when I finished making this the length that I need it. I've now strung my whole pattern, and I have to say I really love it. I think this is a great look for summer. It's chunky, but it's still very lightweight, very light colors, very ocean, very influenced by the ocean. So I really love this piece for just like an everyday kind of fun or vacation wear. So now that I've strung the whole pattern and I've made sure that it's going to fit around my wrist, I'm going to add the bar part of my toggle. So I saved the bar part for last because I want to make sure that the bar is going to pull through the loop side of the toggle. I've added some extra seed beads. I've added about 4 or 5 seed beads here to the end because I want, if you have a very chunky piece of jewelry like this and you end with some chunky beads, you need some small beads directly after those chunky beads to allow for the bar to fit through the loop of your toggle. So that's what I've done here is I've just added 4 or 5 seed beads should do it, and you can always test it. So again, just strung all of my beads and added some seed beads here at the end, about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch of beads to make sure that I have that small beads at the end. So now picking up the bar side of my toggle, I have my extra thread here coming off in the center of my toggle. So I'm just going to put that to the side for right now, and going through one of the beads in the center, 1 or 2 depending on how you want to do this. I'm going to actually go through 2 beads, 2 of the Delicas, and I'm going to go through 1 at a time. So I'm going to go through 1 and then just go through 2, so go through the one next to it in that row. And you can see I've got that pretty well centered. And I'm going to pick up a couple more of my seed beads here. So I've picked up 2 seed beads. I'm going to skip 2 seed beads and go through the rest of my seed beads here before the chunky part of my bracelet starts. And as I pull this, you'll see I get a nice little Y or V shape. So now what I'm going to do is just take this extra thread that I'm still working with and reinforce the bracelet. So I'm going to go down through all of the beads here, trying not to skip over any or get stuck anywhere. And as I go, I will pull tightly on my thread and just make sure that I have no gaps or looseness. I do want some looseness in the bracelet. Of course, I don't want it to be super tight. You want it to be able to flex and move, but you don't want to have gaps where you've got large gaps where you can see tons of thread in between your beads. I'm going to continue down through all the beads here, and then when I get to the other side, I'm going to just tie off my extra thread. After taking the extra thread from the loop side here and running it down, attaching the bar, and coming back, I have it tied off here. And now I'm going to work on just adding and reinforcing the bracelet with the extra thread that I have from the bar side of my toggle. So I'm going to take this extra thread, and after making the bar side of the toggle, you want to just have your thread somewhere in the middle here so it's close to where you're going to be attaching the rest of your bracelet. And we're just going to go down through here like we've done before and reinforce the whole bracelet, taking our thread through all of the beads, just like we did in the last step. I feel comfortable stringing with something like a dragon thread when I do multiple passes through with that dragon thread. So that's why I like leaving extra thread at the end of each side of my toggle clasp. So when I make that, I make it with extra thread, or of course you can always attach thread if you want to at the end. But I like to have that extra thread so I can take it through the beads multiple times, and that makes me feel a little bit more secure, and it also stiffens the bracelet up a little bit. Of course, we have some chunky beads here, so when you have chunkier or heavier beads, it's nice to have extra something that's just going to hold up a little bit better and not be as flimsy. So taking the dragon thread through 3 to 4 times gives you that thickness and that ability to just feel a little bit more confident that it's all gonna stay together for you. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this through again and then tie it off at the end. If I can, I might take it back through another time and tie it off at the other end. You really can't run too much dragon thread through the piece as long as you can still get your needle and thread through the seed beads here without putting too much pressure on them. So I would say 3, 4, probably max of 5 times you would want to run your dragon thread through. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this off and then just tie off any little loose ends that I have here, and then my bracelet will be complete. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Please leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts on the project. If you're also interested in more tutorials just like this one, click on that subscribe button so that you're notified as soon as we have new videos available.